The idea he presented 5.5 years ago is the idea that we run today, which is Kaizen. Very challenging being a one-man, one-woman business in recruitment.
Isn't this the real estate model that you are implementing on recruitment?
You're absolutely right. It's emotional. You know, a house and your job are some of the biggest decisions in your life. Last year, the top performer did 750,000. So the clients know that there's real commitment from the individuals. They are extremely driven to deliver for them.
The risk of having some of these people leaving and opening something similar next door. How do you protect yourself from that?
People are here because they want to be here.
Well, what's stopping the guys then to leave?
I think there are a couple of elements here. The first one is I was very bad at it when I started. Really bad. It was terrible.
What was the first challenge that you faced? What's one common mistake companies make when they're trying to hire, especially top talent?
One of the biggest issues is that there's a rigidity from companies. And you find a candidate that's fantastic, hold on to them. It's like a brilliant opportunity. You know, go for it and figure out how to make that work with what they've got.
I couldn't help but notice there's that recruitment kind of pushing the candidate in your speech.
I'm very passionate. I say things very directly.
Some minutes ago, you mentioned AI and ChatGPT. Do you think that in the next 5-10 years, there's still going to be some kind of space for human recruiters?
Absolutely. Definitely not at this moment. And I can't see it in the future, but people buy into people. But the number one thing is enthusiasm. It's the most overlooked thing. People go in with clever, curated answers and they think they want to hear this and that. Actually, enthusiasm and genuine interest and want is infectious. The most impressive candidates in interview have really researched the company. So it's not the fundamentals that you can click on LinkedIn and instantly work out where's the company located, how many people. Yeah, it's the deeper stuff, the stuff that they've worked, stuff that they're proud of. The best question you can ever ask in an interview is to say to somebody,
Hello, Cosmo. Nice to meet you.
You too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for finding the time to speak to me. I know that your life is very, very fast and quick, fast-paced because of what you do, which is being owner of a recruitment company. A special one with a little twist, as I heard. And I would like to explore that little twist and get to know you a bit better in your profile today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. So I own a company called Kaizen, which is a global headhunting recruitment firm. And as you said, we have a little twist to our model. To take you back and give you a bit of background as to why we created Kaizen and why we have this kind of variation to the standard model. For many years, I've been working in recruitment and I'd met some wonderful people, was working long hours and building good relationships with clients.
Uh-huh.
At the end of the month, I would receive my salary and maybe a bonus as well, a bit of commission based on what I had built. When I first started in recruitment, this was great. It was awesome. I was learning and it was wonderful. Over the years, there started to create a disparity between what I was invoicing and what I was earning with commission. So my billings, exactly. So I would be billing
a lot and earning less.
Yeah. I think the equation was like, it worked out as really a small amount in comparison. And at first, as I said, you don't mind because you're new and you're excited and you're learning and the onus is on the company. They've got a risk. They've got to train you up. But at a certain point in your career, this disparity really gets to you. And you start seeing the numbers that you are making for the company that you're working for against what you're bringing in. I felt I can't continue doing this. I'm working long hours. I'm building close relationships with clients.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the people I work with, but I couldn't, for the next 5, 10, 15 years sit and give so much of that earning to someone else. So I sat down with a great friend of mine, really smart, lovely guy. And I said, look, there has to be a better way. And I said, what option do recruiters have? They either stay in their current company, and maybe they become a manager or a director. It's a little bit more of a salary, but it's never anywhere near what they are billing, or they train up a team. And I said, I don't want to train a team. I'm a recruiter. I like that experience and that interaction, and that's what I want to do. There has to be another way. These are the only options. Of course, you can go out on your own, but that's extremely challenging from a credibility point of view. I think what happens, a lot of people will go on their own and they'll sign 1 or 2 people, clients that they know and they've worked with, which is great. But then they're like, how do I sign more people? And very challenging being a one-man, one-woman business in recruitment. And of course, you have the limitation on candidates. So you send a client a candidate and you can't do much with the remaining candidates. You place one, you've got 4 others. Where do we go? What do we do? And I said, there has to be a solution to this, something where you have freedom and control, like you're in your own business, running your own time, but where you have real ability to make money, but the administration, the marketing, the invoicing, the collaboration, the platform that you get with an agency is there. And so this chap went away and he came back a few days later and said, I have an idea. The idea he presented 5.5 years ago is the idea that we run today, which is Van Kaizen. And that model is really straightforward. Everybody at Van Kaizen takes 75% of everything they invoice. There's no buy-in fee. There's no desk charge. There's no clever, complicated. It's not. It's very simple. The invoice is 10,000 euros. 7,500 goes to the consultant, to the recruiter.
Wow.
And Van Kaizen run all operations, marketing, invoicing, legal. They have 24/7 IT support. Their job is to treat us as the client. We, the consultants, the headhunters, are the client of Van Kaizen, and Van Kaizen is there to remove the barriers, the obstacles, the hurdles in order for us to go and deliver.
No base salary.
No base salary. No.
Don't get me wrong saying this, but isn't this the real estate model that you are implementing on recruitment?
You're absolutely right. The real estate model in the United States specifically,
also in Portugal, where I live.
In Portugal as well, right? And they're very similar, recruitment and real estate, which is you're dealing with clients, you're dealing with people. It's emotional. A house and your job are some of the biggest decisions in your life. And the real estate market realized that actually people would be incredibly driven. They would be very excited. They'd have that freedom and control to work around their own lifestyle and make more money than just being employed. And recruitment, we looked at it and we felt there is a huge similarity to recruitment. Why is no one doing this? I've heard of a couple of companies where some people are on a base salary, some people have got commission and then a bit of base, and it's all a bit disjointed. And we didn't want that. From day one, the model was the same as it is today. 75% of whatever you invoice is yours. And the operations team run like a military operation. The moment a placement is made, they will send out the invoice, they will chase for payment, make sure it's received in. And the moment it's received into Van Kaizen, we, the recruiters, invoice. And traditionally, or standardly, it's about 3 hours in terms of payment. So it's immediate. There's not waiting for the end of the month or wait for the next pay run. It's not like that. The whole focus of Kaizen is speed of delivery, because we as recruiters know that speed is the number one thing that kills all deals and drives us mad. So their job is specifically to go out and deliver from an administration operations point of view for us.
The way I see it, Cosmo, is that that's a model that attracts only top performance, right? Because if you're the kind of person that you're looking for stability, meaning that you need to have like the base salary because of uncertainty, you never know that the placement will happen or not. That means that you don't have a top performance mindset, right? You will hold to that base salary just as a lifeline, right? While if you are a top performer, you know that you need to perform the maximum to earn that maximum.
You are right that it attracts really strong performing recruiters. But what's also really interesting about this is even somebody earning currently, let's say, 45,000 euros, there is often a really big disparity between what they're earning and what a model like Kaizen would give them in return. So what we found was, and I would always say to somebody, I say, don't take my word for what the numbers are. Look at it yourself. You take, what have I invoiced or billed in the last 3 years, multiply it by 0.75 to see what I would have got at Kaizen, and then take my base salary with commission and look at the difference over the last 3 years, and then look at the difference between them. And what was fascinating is, you're absolutely right. Traditionally, we're attracting people who are high performers, really good billers. But what was really interesting to me is actually this correlated across the board. It was actually really the very juniors that there would be no difference and it wouldn't be worth it. But when you started to get to a point where you were invoicing, let's say like 70,000, 80,000 on a lower end, it would be really considerably different. And that was where we were like, wow, this is a real game changer, not to just to a sector of recruitment, but to recruitment in general, and why we don't do more of this. Today we are just under 30 consultants across 24 countries, 6 continents.
Wow, globally.
Yeah, completely global. But we've done very little marketing. Nearly all the business has been referred by people inside the company, which is great because you refer something that you like and is working. But I think now is very much the kind of time to say, hey, look, this is our model. We're out there. We're not an alternative. We're just there for people who want freedom and control, but want to start making real money for their time and effort that they put in.
Just for us to have an idea here of figures, so are you willing to disclose, for example, top performance in average? How much could we be earning on a yearly?
Yeah, totally. So last year, the top performer did 750,000 in terms of earnings.
Am I limited to my local market, or I could be closing recruitments all over the world?
Great question. No, you can do recruitment from all over the world. Most people traditionally focus on their local market. International perspective, it's completely open. We don't have any kind of rules over you can't recruit in this country or that country. That's, it's wherever you build those relationships.
We need to be realistic, right? For you to achieve those figures, you need to be invoicing markets, high level or high economies, right? So you need to go after clients in those economies, but you can do that remotely.
Totally. And this is an interesting point, is everyone inside the business is a 360-degree recruiter. And so what that means is they both do the candidate side and the client side. Yeah.
Okay.
So we get inbound inquiries from clients, which is great, and then we disseminate through the group. But the onus is on us, the recruiters, to go and get the clients. And there are 2 things about that. The first is that in order to have a standalone business, you have to be able to have your own clients. If you're reliant on other people, you don't really have a standalone business. When I say standalone, I mean you don't have a company that you can fall back on. You're always reliant on other people. The other side of this is that when we bring someone into the business, I will often sit with them, work with them to get them their first clients if they've never done that before. And there's a general perception that, oh my gosh, I've got to get 20 clients. You do not. You can make a lot of money off a small number of clients. So, for example, the invoicing we were talking about last year, the 750,000 top biller, that's what they earned, by the way. They made that from 4 clients, predominantly 4 clients. I think 85% of that came from 4 clients. You don't need to have a big client base, but it is a fundamental of any business that you know how to sell. And recruitment isn't selling, in my opinion. But the client it's commercial, it's business development. So even if you have the most amazing lemonade in the world, a great product, if you can't sell your product, it means nothing. So a piece of this puzzle is that when we bring someone in who maybe hasn't done business development before, I will take them on that journey to get them, help them get their first client, get their first roles, and show them how that process works.
What is the perception of clients once they understand that the people they may eventually be working from 𝘏𝘏𝘶𝘶 is an independent person there's no base salary? Is there any kind of negative perception that you perceive, or?
So it's a really good question. Traditionally, we don't kind of go into it hugely with clients because it's not really so relevant. And that for the client, they just want to know that someone can deliver.
Yes.
We always clear, obviously, one point of contact with the client, so they don't have lots of different people. It's always very clear who that point of contact is. What we do find is that when clients ask, I would always talk about it like to anybody, is that there's a sense of relief. A lot of the time clients go, so fundamentally, you can only get paid if you deliver. There's nothing to fall back on. So you are unlikely to be the kind of recruiter that says, oh, I'm really close to a deal on Friday, but it's now the weekend. I'm just going to leave it. So the clients know that there's real commitment from the individuals. They are extremely driven to deliver for them.
They want to invite.
We naturally will go above and beyond. And I think that's just the way it will be. If you have the responsibility falls with you, you are going to go above and beyond. And so actually we find that clients really resonate with that if they ask about it and we go into it.
What about, sorry, I'm just thinking like with the mindset of a client today here in our conversation, Cosmo. Yeah. What about rebates and replacements? Does that land on the shoulders of the person that made the placement? Or imagine that person just does not work anymore? How does that work? Probably already faced this situation sometimes, right?
Brilliant question.
I've been there than that.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm glad you asked. Like, keep them coming. So if a rebate occurs, 𝘏𝘏𝘶𝘶 will automatically settle it. So if it was a financial rebate, so for example, a candidate left and the client was owed some money back, for example, in order to maintain the relationship with the client and the recruiter, 𝘏𝘏𝘶𝘶 will sort it out immediately, will settle it. They would then have a chat with the recruiter and say, look, we've had to rebate back some money to the client. How would you like to do this? Would you like to repay that, or would you like to knock that off future placements? And it's, so then the person can go, hey, I've got the money, yeah, let's settle now. Or it would help me from a cash flow if we could knock that off future placements. Which again is a big difference. If you're on your own, you don't have that. You have to settle that straight away. So what we looked at was, it wasn't just individuals who were working as an employed individual who 𝘏𝘏𝘶𝘶 would appeal to. It's also people who had gone out on their own and were having situations exactly like that, where there's a rebate and there was a financial responsibility to pay something back, or they were calling up saying, hi, John, your invoice, you guys are 15 weeks late on the invoice, pay the bloody thing. Also, can I work on your head of product? It's a very difficult conversation to be chasing on an invoice and then asking to work. So we really create a separation. where the finance is run all through Van Kaizen to maintain the client relationship. So for a client, it's seamless and it's done immediately. The recruiters then will deal with Van Kaizen.
If I was in your shoes, Cosmo, I believe that what would be taking my sleep at night would be the risk of having some of these people working for me just leaving and opening something similar next door. How do you protect yourself from that?
So we firstly, we don't believe in trying to control any of the guys. And if they want to do that, they have every right to do that. We actually, funnily enough, even have it written into our contract that if you want to leave, you can leave at any time and you can take all of your clients that you've signed with you. It's a contractual obligation from us.
Wow.
Yeah,
no, I was not expecting that.
I know, right? But we did that because no recruitment agency does that. And we're not here to control people. We want people here because they want to be here.
So what's stopping the guys then to leave?
I think there are a couple of elements here. The first one is the network. Although we are all over the world, we work incredibly closely. 62% of the placements that we make as a group are collaborative. So there's a huge reliance, need, and want to work with other people inside the group. And that's very, very unique. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we built our own software. So we spend a lot of money on software, ATS, applicant tracking, exactly. And it's completely open for everyone. We see all the candidates, huge database of candidates, every client, where the client's located, the contacts, which candidates in process. So at any given opportunity, one of your candidates could be in process with one of my clients or one of Joe's clients or one of Kevin's clients. And so there's this complete transparency and you can earn from that network effect. And I suppose the final piece is that a lot of people have gone out on their own and come and joined us. So our two kind of biggest pool of people who joined Van Kaizen are people who have gone out on their own and said, hey, there's a lot of administration. I can't share candidates. I don't have a database system. I feel quite lonely and I can't sign new clients because I have no brand credibility. And Van Kaizen says, we can tick all of that. And then of course you get the people who are employed working for an agency who are like, I know I can make more money, and those are the two kind of demographics traditionally that join. But you're right, anybody could leave at any time and they have every right to do that. And we would wish them good luck on their journey. But that hasn't been the case so far. We've had an incredibly high retention rate. So in terms of people who are thriving and doing well within inside the group, our retention rate's at 94%, which is super unique. And that's over a 5.5 year since setup timeframe, which is, it's unique for any business, let alone recruitment.
So if I heard correctly, there's another analogy here with the real estate market, which is you can be the one that brings the candidate into the database, but another person could be the one do the placement. There's a fee share.
Yeah.
The more candidates you bring, so it could be like a focus on being a sourcer, yes, bringing new people, or just making placements.
You're absolutely right. So traditionally recruitment agencies have two splits, right, which is clients and candidates. We felt that there was more to it than just having a client and a candidate. There are slightly more components. And so we have 4 splits inside the business. We have the candidate sourcing. That's connecting with someone on LinkedIn, getting the CV in, putting that CV on the database. We have the candidate management, which is calling up that candidate, pitching the job, the pre-interview, post-interview preparation, the negotiating an offer. We have the client management, which is checking in with a client, building that relationship with them, getting roles to work on. And we have the client signing. And each 4 of these are attributed a percentage. And so candidates sourcing is at 25%, candidate management, 25%, client management, 20%, client signing, 5%. The full stack is 75%. Mm-hmm. The reason we've done this, And this was really it was a logical play to be like, you know what, let's split it into 4. I think it was one of the best decisions we ever made.
For collaborative reasons, right?
It also allows the person who signed the client says, okay, I've signed the client and I'm managing my client. Great. I've got my 25%. I've got a new role on. I'm going to work on it. And the client says, you've done a great job. I need you to deliver 4 more roles for me in the next 3 weeks. You're like, oh shit. Wow. Okay.
You ask for help.
Totally. You can then go out to a network of individuals and you decide, do you want to do the sourcing or do you want to do the sourcing and candidate management? And you know someone's going to be more incentivized to do the candidate sourcing and candidate management. But you have the control over what you give out because it's your client. But in the same way, I signed a client in London, a great client I've worked with for many years. They opened up in Asia. I didn't have a network. They asked me if I'd work on it. I was like, I don't have a network there. I know I won't be able to deliver what they need. I'm desperate to do it. And on my own, I would have said yes, and it would have been probably a disaster. So what I did is I said, you know what? My colleague is out there. She's fantastic. Let me introduce you. She manages the client in Asia, and I take the 5% because I signed them originally in London. So you can use this network effect, whether it's an international expansion with a client, whether or not you want someone to just to source on a role, whether you've got a lot of roles and you need someone to source and candidate manage. In short, what it means is that if you have a lot of roles, you always have support. If you don't have a lot of roles, you just join the company, there are roles for you to work on. So it allows you this kind of, freedom to take which piece of the stack you want as and when you need.
Well, thank you for explaining how 𝘏𝘏𝘀𝑗𝑠en works. The only thing that I'm still curious is about the name. What does it mean, 𝘏𝘏𝘀𝑗𝑠en? At least I cannot. I know that Kaizen is a Japanese term for efficiency, if I'm not incorrect.
Totally. So Kaizen is this Japanese philosophy. I lived in Japan and I spent 3 years in Russia. I landed up at university in Moscow and I then went off and did a postgraduate in Japan learning Japanese. And so I resonated massively with the culture. But Kaizen is a philosophy that there is no disparity or no difference between the CEO and the janitor and the cleaner. We are all of one, and there are no egos here. And I thought that was a great representation of what we're trying to build. It's this idea that it's consistent improvement that can apply to all of us. It's not anybody being above or below the other, which is totally our model. We don't have managers. We don't have directors. That's just not us. And Van was, I lived in the Netherlands afterwards, and Van is Dutch and it's from. And so the idea is from continuous improvement, talent, both internally inside the business and the people we want to work with and introduce to our clients. People who are like, I might be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, but I want to learn, I want to grow. And that mentality kind of resonated with us. And so that's where the name came from.
Okay. Where are you living right now?
So I live on the Isle of Man.
How long have you been doing recruitment in total?
15, 16 years. I first started in the Netherlands and then kind of took that with me from there. I was very bad at it when I started. Really bad. It was terrible.
What was the big challenge, the first challenge that you faced in the industry?
The first thing was getting my head around how this worked, that you made introductions and then people would pay for it. I was like, but I love introductions and I make it. How can you make this into a business? And I found that very challenging, but it took me 6 months to make my first placement. And I was in a company where it was very high turnover. It was sink or swim. Come in, no good, you're out. And I was no good. And I should have gone. And the managing director, who's an amazing guy, said, I think you have potential and I'm going to train you. So at the end of every day, everyone had gone home. We were in the World Trade Centers, and we would headhunt into America, and he would sit next to me. We'd have the phone on loudspeaker, and he would say, pause. This is what you want to say. No, this is what you say. And we did this night after night after night after night. And eventually I was like, I get it. I get what we're doing here. I can see the pattern. I can see it. And then I went on and became the group highest biller. But really, I should have gone. And if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have had a career in recruitment. Funnily enough, he actually consults for us, not as a recruiter, but as an advisor into the business now, which is a nice kind of circular.
I also had an early recruitment firm experience. I had the chance to work in a middle and top management kind of recruitment firm. But I don't think I was lucky because you either land on something that is already happening, like a train already moving, and you just collaborate in finding candidates, having processes, etc. Or, as it was my case, the idea was to open a new vertical in a different area. So they saw potential in me to explore a new market that didn't exist yet. So I found myself, unfortunately, all day on the phone, calling clients, trying to book meetings to go there, present the company. And after 2 weeks, I felt like I was a salesman. So I was coming out fresh from a university in psychology, aiming to work in HR, right? And I was feeling like I was repeating the same speech every day and not having success.
Demoralizing.
It was a bad experience, Cosmo. It was a bad experience, and I left that company. Curious enough, some years later, I founded a recruitment company because I felt that I had the drive to conquer the market, train a team, visit clients, speak with candidates, try to gain market share from the big ones in the market, the 𝘭𝘍s, the 𝘧𝘭𝘆𝘐𝑗𝑠. And I did that for lots of years. It was locally in Portugal, not as exciting as the way you described globally and with all that, those interesting figures. But yeah.
Local market knowledge and doing it locally, I think, is how we started originally. And it's so important because you get to understand exactly what it is that local market needs and wants, and how you pitch or how you speak to a candidate or a client in Mexico is so different to how you speak to one in London. So I always have a lot of respect for the businesses that set up small, focused on their local market, knew what they did, and they just did it really well. It reminded me of kind of going to like an Italian restaurant and the recipe had been passed down by the grandmother. They just had a few dishes on there, but they were fucking great and people loved it. And that was exactly the kind of thing that sounds like you built.
How things have changed since you started on recruitment?
Yeah, it's a really, really interesting question. When I started in recruitment, vlogging didn't exist. Vlogging. So like,
vlogging? Okay.
Yeah, vlogging. And,
I understood vlogging, but I was thinking, what's the connection here with recruitment?
Well, the connection is that, you think about vlogging right now, right? If you're building if you're building out a company, you want to market, you want to get somebody out there on YouTube presenting it and selling it. This didn't ever really exist. So that was just on one side of it. So the kind of evolution of recruitment, we know that data has become huge. And I think there's a general perception where people are like, oh yeah, no, data is really great. Actually, it's a prerequisite. There are certain roles that as a chief marketing officer, if you do not understand data inside out, you simply are not as attractive as somebody else who does. And I think what we're going to start to see, in the way I'm seeing it, is that there are fundamentals that are coming into society, or that are coming into that come into the world that we live in, AI, data, and if people don't have that as a part of their fundamental knowledge, not a course that they took, but actually a core part of that knowledge, I think they will be left behind. And so we've seen these evolution over time, and as more and more of these kind of worlds open up, especially in AI, I think it's going to be a fundamental that you have that knowledge. You really know how to use it, not just a ChatGPT, but you understand the difference between, the benefits of Claude over ChatGPT, etc.
What's one common mistake companies make when they're trying to hire, especially top talent?
One of the biggest issues is that there's a rigidity from companies. This is the box, this is what I'm looking for, and this is exactly how I want it to be. And actually, during that process, there may be a candidate that comes along that does fit that box, but has something else that they are brilliant at within that skill set. So yes, it can do the job and more. And often a company will say, no, it's too much. I this is what I'm looking for. That's it. And I think it was the CEO of Google said that, a brilliant business has to be like water. You have to be able to evolve and change and work with what you've got. And you find a candidate that's fantastic, hold on to them. It's like a brilliant opportunity, go for it and figure out how to make that work with what they've got. Lose the rigidity. I try and give an example where someone goes to an interview and they are, let's say they're in marketing and they are fantastic at coding. They happen to understand code. And a business is like, yeah, we don't really have a need for that. This person fits everything you're looking for. If they've got a passion and they are great at coding, why are we not integrating that from whether it's SEO or back end for our marketing? Use it. Don't just stick to this is outside the scope of what I'm looking for. That's okay. As long as they have what you want, let's use and integrate that additional talent. I see it as a kind of buy one, get one free. And I think businesses can be very scared or hesitant about that, which I think is a mistake.
I could not help but notice there's that recruitment kind of pushing the candidate in your speech.
I'm very passionate. I say things very directly. And if I think something isn't the right match, I'm the first to say both to the client and the candidate, and so everyone knows where they stand. But I also have seen so many success stories where I've said, hey, hold on, this person can do more than what we're just looking for. They like you, you like them. Let's see where we can take this and grow. And years later, clients have come back and said, that was such a great hire.
They would say thank you to you for presenting the hire.
Yeah, and I think they're also quite grateful to be pushed within their comfort zone. I don't want to push someone to do something they don't want to do. But if you can get someone to realize that actually, hey, we're missing an opportunity here, and this is how it is. I also like to put my money where my mouth is. So if I did say that to a client and I said, look, I really think this is important, I would ensure, I would say, don't worry, I'd be happy to delay an invoice for 2 months, 3 months until you're comfortable. Like if I'm putting this on you and I'm saying I feel very strongly, then let me be part of that journey with you. So I'm more than happy to delay. And if it doesn't work out, I'll find somebody else and there's no invoice. But I think you have to see this from an individual's point of view. And we are human at the end of the day. And often we need to be brought outside our comfort zone if we want to grow.
Do you feel like you do more that convincing speech with clients that are like, I don't know if I should hire, or with candidates, I don't know if I should accept or not? Which one needs more pushing or small nudges?
That's a really interesting question.
It could happen both ways, right? Both ways.
It can happen both ways. If a client, and it's really important to understand the reason behind it. If a candidate says, I'm not feeling it, then, and you push something, that is a crazy thing to do, because they've got an instinct, they've got a gut. That's important to listen to. But if it's fear over, I don't know if I'm going to be able to take this on. It seems there's an element of the job that I don't know, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of turning around and saying, look, just go for it, it's all good, I would say, let's have a conversation. Let's have a conversation with the client. They want to offer you. You're interested. You're hesitant. Let's have that conversation. And let's tell them, say, look, I really like you guys. I am nervous about it because you're looking for this, and I haven't done a lot in that. I've done a lot in this, and I feel really confident, but this I don't. How does that sit with you? And you allow the client to say, oh, okay, I really appreciate the honesty and openness. Actually, that's really important to this job. Maybe this isn't right. Or you allow the client to say, no, that's fine. We've got a whole team that can do that bit. That is not a problem. And they can work with you. Or the client says, actually, I love this. I would love to work with you close by to train you up and invest in you in this area. So much of the time, we don't communicate the fears. It's the same in a relationship. It's the same with so much of life. We sit and like, oh, I can't tell you what I'm worried about. I'm nervous. If you don't communicate, if you don't put that out there, what on earth are we doing? We're just misleading, and we're setting ourselves up for a fall. And I think the greatest recruiters facilitate not only that confidence and that yes, I want to move forward, but allow someone to open up and really communicate and allow them to do that directly with the client. And so many recruiters sit there in this very strong, quite powerful position and can manipulate it because they're getting paid based on success. So I tell you this and you tell it's bullshit. Actually, what you need to do is say, let's get an open conversation going here, guys. Let's get the transparency going. Mm-hmm. And if afterwards it's not right, then it's not right. But with the information, we can deal with where we go.
Some minutes ago, you mentioned AI and ChatGPT. Do you think that in the next 5-10 years, there's still going to be some kind of space for human recruiters?
Absolutely. Definitely not at this moment. And I can't see it in the future, but people buy into people. They buy into their vision. They buy into their demeanor. But more than anything, they buy into the energy of the individual. I always say that the number one skill or number one trait to get an offer doesn't mean you'll accept it or not, but the number one thing is enthusiasm. It's the most overlooked thing. People go in with clever, curated answers and they think they want to hear this and that. Actually, enthusiasm and genuine interest and want is infectious. And if you have somebody who wants to work for your company, wants to work for that role, it's very hard to say, I'm going to give it to someone else. And I think AI does an incredible job of streamlining the administration, the non-emotional side. Brilliant. But we are emotions. We're made of water. We choose emotionally. And you need to have that personal interaction. Well, you don't need to, but it's a fundamental of having that personal interaction, I think, in order to make a switch. You can get given all the logic in the world. Love, look at love. It's a wonderful example. All the logic in the world says that decision's crazy or mad or you're going against all your biological kind of setup, but you're not. You're going totally on your instinct and on your feeling. And so you always, your head says, that might be mad. Actually, it's the feelings and the emotions that we get. And that is absolutely why humans in our industry are so important. And I believe will remain important until AI gets to a point where it makes us believe that it's human.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Trying not to focus on AI, but still, what industries or jobs do you think are the hottest right now? Or and also ones that are cooling off a little bit at the moment?
So roles where it can be automated, we're seeing a big decline in that area.
Can you give us a few examples just for us to understand?
Customer service is a great one. And this is not high value customers. This is traditional kind of customers. How can we automate it? And how much of that process, and actually for a lot of customers, they're also quite happy with that automation piece as well because they're getting their answers quicker. They're not having to wait on the line. So we're seeing decline in customer service in general. We're seeing an incline in, I mentioned earlier, data, but data engineers who have an understanding of machine learning. So anything in and around machine learning is on the rise, and that also applies to marketing. because a lot of companies see it as a cost-effective benefit to their business. Instead of having to bring in our marketing chap, our SEO chap, the developer that's linked to the marketing team, actually somebody who's got an understanding of all of these areas is incredibly helpful. It centralizes the point of contact. So I say, in general, anything that can traditionally be automated is declining. Anything that is going to be data-driven, AI-driven, software-driven is on the rise. Big rise in AI developers. I know I keep talking about AI, but it's huge. The salaries are huge. Demand is huge. The supply is low. I suppose what we're really seeing is the move in general is towards very high level tech. And that does not matter it's not limited to software developers. It links to operations, commercial, marketing, HR, finance. And at the moment, it's a nice to have, and you have an advantage. In the next 5 years, it will be a fundamental. And if you don't have it, then we're not interested in speaking to you. As in, not us, but that's what I think clients will say that it just is not competitive with the landscape.
Thanks for making it scary as you did, because what I wanted to ask you next was what should candidates really be focusing on in order to stand out on today's market or the future market?
So we've talked obviously a little bit about AI and stuff like that. The most impressive candidates at interview have really researched the company, and then they use that information in the interview. And it seems so simple, right, to research a company.
It should be something like mandatory before going to an interview with a client, right?
Yeah, this is the interesting thing. So you're right, it should be mandatory. It's often not done. But there's a bigger piece. A lot of people do the research, but then they don't actually let somebody know that they've done it. Which is, in my mind, kind of pointless. We're not saying, hey, look at me, I've done this research. But you do need to let someone know that I care about this, I've taken the time, and I think I understand a little bit about the business. So, and this isn't like, there's research like, how many people do you have in a company? Boring. No one cares. What we really care about is, I just worked 9 months to deliver a new project, and you know about that project. You know where I delivered that project. You know the target market behind it, and you have read up reviews on that. Now that is exciting to me. So it's not the fundamentals that you can click on LinkedIn and instantly work out where's the company located, how many people. It's the deeper stuff. It's stuff that they've worked, stuff that they're proud of. And I think having this information and being able to talk about it and say openly, hey, I saw last week you guys just launched in Brazil. Really interesting market. How are you finding it? Okay. So I know that your competitor, funnily enough, is also launched in Brazil. These guys, now I know a little bit about that. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, not only do they know about us, they researched who are our competitors. And you see what I've done with that? I'm leading the interview. I'm not being interviewed anymore. I am now taking control. And the balance, the dichotomy, the unspoken balance in an interview process is I'm the employer, I have the control. So 99% of the time in an interview, it starts with, hey, tell us about you. The greatest people who get into interviews, or the ones who have the greatest chance of success, will flip the narrative. They get into the interview and they say, thank you for having me here. Tell me, why is this role being created? And the people there go, wow, oh my gosh. Because what this person's done is they're saying, I'm going to assess whether or not this is viable opportunity for me. I'm not going to just jump into my CV, which you've already read. I want to understand exactly why this role was created. And from there, and what your need is, from there, I'm going to assess whether or not I'm suitable. But most importantly, when you do ask me a question, I'm going to be able to come back to you with answers specifically related to your need, not a flow of information where 5% is going to be relevant.
Thank you for everything that you've shared, Cosmo. I have a last question for you that I would like to ask. So between finding the dream client or the dream candidate, what is harder to find for you?
Finding a dream anything is a challenge, hence why it's a dream.
Mm-hmm.
But in today's market, the client is harder, in my experience, to find than the candidate.
Oh.
Yeah.
I was expecting otherwise. Why is that, Cosmo?
Because the components that make a dream client are very, very challenging because they're often reliant on multiple different individuals inside an organization. So what would be one of the dream client kind of tick boxes is speed of getting back to a candidate submission. We know that 1 day is okay. 2 days, the candidate starts going, are they interested? 3 days, the candidate starts saying, well, at 4 days, most candidates, a good candidate should recuse themselves and say, well, I've not heard back. They're obviously not on it. I'm going to move. And actually, what happens is inside that business is it's actually the HR reliant on the hiring manager, who's then got a million different things going on. And recruitment is a part of it, but it's not the primary part of it. And so, of course, it delays that process. That's just one tick box. And I think very hard for businesses to be speedy and agile. And the number one thing in recruitment is time kills all deals. The candidates lose interest. The client loses interest. We need to be fast. We need to be on it. And that's a really difficult component for a business of most sizes to be able to expedite. Which is why when I set up Kaizen, the operational side, speed was the number one thing. It was absolute paramount that things happened like a military operation. So I would say dream client is a challenge. I'll leave you with this. This is an interesting one. The best question you can ever ask in an interview, and by the way, it does not matter if it's at the end or the beginning, it's irrelevant. But the best question is to say to somebody, what quantifies success of this role? How do I know in 6 to 12 months I've done a good job? And it's a twofold reason why it's so powerful. The first is that you're saying that my self-worth is directly attributed to delivering. I want to know what that looks like. Your second is you're saying to them, how do I know? You're preempting the idea. You're getting someone to imagine you in the role. Oh my gosh, this person's got the role. They're there. They're in process. And that visualization is super powerful. And from a candidate's perspective, you want to be working for a business that can answer that like that. A company that says, well, I'm not. That is not a company you want to be working for.
Red flag.
You want to work for someone who goes, I can tell you exactly what I need. I find that so powerful. And with that one question, you can structure the whole interview from there.
So I was really surprised with your answer because I was picturing that you would say more difficult to find the dream candidate. Because in my perspective, especially if you work in tech, everyone wants the same profile. Everyone is looking and chasing the same AI engineers, the same backend developers, etc. So once you have that candidate and you show to all the clients, all of them will say, yes, I want to meet. So you just need to find the candidate because for sure there will be a company that is more than willing to hire that.
You are right. And you're right. I mean, it's finding a dream candidate is super hard. But then the way I see it with candidates is that you speak to somebody and they may not be perfect for one role or one client, but there will be someone out there that they are perfect for. I see it more kind of like dating or online dating, which is we find that individual, and if they don't work here, where will they work? What is that personality type that's going to fit and match? And so I think there's a home for everybody, I suppose. But with the clients, I think there are more components to manage because there are more pieces to the pie.
Okay. For every keyhole, there's a key.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And a great recruiter's job is to find the lock.
Thanks, Cosmo, for everything that you shared.
Thank you for having me.
If anyone is interested in reaching out to you or to Van Kaizen, I've left the links for your profiles and pages on the video description, so feel free to engage.
That would be great. Yeah, please do. Please do.
Have a nice day, Cosmo. Thank you.
Thank you.